Testing. Perfect. Okay. Hi, me.
Morning.
Morning.
Andy, welcome to the December CNPA Planning Committee meeting. For those members of the public joining us today, either virtually or in person, I am Russell Jones, the convener of the Park Authority's Planning Committee. Today's meeting will also be streamed live on the Cairngorms YouTube channel. I would ask the clerk to call the roll now, please. Alex.
Chiva Blackett.
Yes, I'm here. I'm having slight broadband issues this morning, so I'm going to keep my camera off to stop me dropping out, I hope.
Okay. Sandy Bremner.
Good morning.
Jackie Breerton.
Morning.
Pete Cosgrove.
Good morning.
Kenny Deans.
Hello.
Paul Gibb.
Here.
Hannah Grist.
Good morning.
Russell Jones.
Here.
John Kirk.
Morning.
Lauren McCallum.
Good morning.
Eleanor McIntosh.
Morning.
Ian McLaren.
Good morning.
Fiona McLean.
Morning.
Steve Micklewright.
Yeah, I'm here.
Duncan Miller.
Morning.
Anne Ross.
Morning.
Derek Ross.
Here.
Michael Williamson.
Here.
Thanks, Alex. Members, to help move the business forward effectively, please keep your questions succinct and to the point, focused firmly on clarification of technical or planning issues. Once we have moved into the discussion phase and application, it would be helpful if members could indicate an appropriate point if you are minded to put forward any proposal regarding the officer's recommendations. Please raise your hand to indicate that you want to speak. During the meeting, please make sure your microphones are muted unless you are speaking to ensure premium sound quality on the live stream. Should a member wish to pull together an amendment to the motion on any of the items today, a breakout room is available and details on your board memo. You will be joined there by Peter Ferguson. Good morning, Peter. Move to apologies. We have apologies from Bill Lobbin. Do we have any more? Is that it? Okay. So move on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting on 14th November 2025. Can I ask if the committee is content with the accuracy of the minutes from the meeting on the 14th of November? Can I assume that we're happy to approve these minutes?
Yes.
And are there any matters arising then? No. Okay. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members wish to declare an interest in any of the items on the agenda today? Pete Cosgrove.
Hi, my company, Alapet Ecology, did some historical baseline ecology work on the site, so I feel it's appropriate for me to lead the meeting while this matter is discussed.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Derek Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7, Kailaki Wind Farm. I've made comments in the press regarding industrialisation of the landscape, negative comments, and the cumulative effect of wind farms. So I'll be withdrawing from that.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Move on to the first item of business then. This is an application for detailed planning permission, erection of 4 houses at land 35 metres south of the Snipe, 3 Desher Court, Boat of Garton. And this will be introduced by Catherine Donachie. Good morning, Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a planning application for 4 houses in Boat of Garton. The planning application is on the edge of the settlement, just outside the settlement boundary at Boat of Garton, as shown in that outlined red in the application on the slide there. This application has got a valid planning and principal consent. So the principle of development here for 4 houses has been established, and this planning application, the current one, now seeks matters specified in the conditions of that planning and principal consent. So it's simply the detail of the application, the siting, design, etc. that's up for consideration, not the principle. It's within an area, the woods there that you see on the slide are a designated special protection area, the Abernethy Woods, for Capercaillie, Crossbill and Osprey interests, and that was considered at the planning and principle stage when a habitat regulation appraisal was carried out, and it was determined that the erection of 4 houses wouldn't have any adverse effects on these qualities. So that's already been considered as well. The application, this next slide just shows the context of the site, the house, the woodland, where the site sits in the woodland. There's housing to the immediate north, residential properties to the north at Desher Court, and there's housing to the east at, on the right-hand side of the slide, on Kincardie Road. The proposal is for 4 houses, and it's a partnership between the estate and the Communities Housing Trust, who are representing or working with the local community to deliver affordable housing. 2 of the houses, the 2 at the front, the semi-detached pair at the front, will be affordable rented housing in line with the Scottish Government's funding and rural rental schemes. And there's been a supporting document that explains how this will work, and these houses will be retained in perpetuity for affordable rented accommodation. It's 2 accessible houses, and then the 2 at the back of the site, at the south of the site, are going to be 2 detached properties, which the estate will then sell to cross-subsidise the delivery of the affordable housing. The access will come in from Strathspey Park, which you see there's a little cul-de-sac that they're proposing to serve the 4 houses, and the access will come in off Strathspey Park, an existing road, which will be upgraded, just small works that are needed to bring it to adoptable standard, sort of largely to do with paving and so on, and curbing, and that will then serve the site, and the whole road will be adopted, including the drainage for the road as well. There's existing paths that you can see through the site. At the northern part of the site, there's a path, and it's a core path that runs along between the property to the north, the Snipe, and the site itself. It runs along at the back of the Snipe. That's going to be diverted. It's proposed it will come down through the site alongside the access road, and then connecting into the the paths round about, and so it will be a surfaced path then. It's a trodden path at the moment. There's also there's a whole path network in these woods, and there's a path that runs down through the site in the right-hand corner of the site, running down into the wider woodlands. That'll be retained as well. And there's a proposal for an attenuation basin in that corner as well there. So this path network will be preserved as a result of the application. This slide maybe shows the site. This is the landscaping. The site is treed at the moment. It's wooded. There's areas of trees, little cleared areas within them as well. There's an area to the left-hand side, top left-hand side of the site. There's a clump of trees. Those trees are going to be retained, and trees around the edge of the site. But otherwise, the site will largely be cleared, and new planting will be carried out in certain areas as shown in that plan, alongside the access road, and down in the bottom corner where this is the attenuation feature, the SIDS feature is going to be. Drainage will be connecting into there, the road drainage. The drainage for the houses themselves, the roof water drainage, will be connected into soakaways within the gardens underneath the permeable access driveways, parking areas that they're proposing within the site. As a result of the trees being removed, there was some wildlife surveys done previously, and red squirrel was the main issue, which is now going covered by a proposed planning condition. There was also bat surveys done of the trees as well, which is all explained in the report. There was concerns from neighbours about wildlife and bats in the area. This is a drainage layout, which I kind of briefly alluded to there. You can see in the bottom corner, there's a green pond. It's not exactly a pond. There's a soakaway, and above it, there's an attenuation, a sort of curved clearing there, which will be planted with water tolerant plants, because when there is a higher flood levels in the area, or not flood levels, water rainfall, then this will provide any extra capacity. And then the soakaways under the driveways in the individual gardens that you see there. So that's the drainage layout on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, that's the sort of fairly minor improvements to Strathspey Park, which serves the site down there. This is because of the planting, that's the trees that are being removed. There is proposals for compensatory planting at a 3-to-1 ratio, and that's been delivered on other land belonging to the estate, who are a partner to this application. And you'll see those two red areas, compounds, further down on the bottom left-hand side of the slide. That's, you go down Kincardie Road, and there's a public path going down into the woods from there, and they're proposing to these two cleared areas, they're proposing to plant with native planting, and that's the compensation for the loss of the trees on the site. It's a small part of the wider woodland that's going to be lost as a result. These are the house types. The one on the left-hand side is the 1.5-storey properties, the private properties to the back of the site. They're going to be finished in timber with standing seam grey roofs, and they're 3-bedroom properties, detached with aluclad windows and doors. The one on the right is the accessible houses, the semi-detached accessible houses, and they're 2-bedroomed. Again, the similar finishes, timber on the north elevation, and it's harled on the south elevation. No, sorry, it's harled on the north elevation, and timber on the south elevation. The top elevation is what will be looking towards the properties to the north, residential properties, and that's bedrooms for the new houses, the proposed accessible houses, with kind of patio doors going out into their gardens. These houses are fully accessible, so that it'll be wheelchair, I suppose, usable, and they've got carports on either side. So the carports, you can go into and park your car and then come in to the property just directly in a covered way, so that you don't have to go out in the rain. They've got an asymmetrical roof, and you'll see from that the idea is that is to try and reduce the impact on the other properties in the surrounding area, and it's also so that they can have solar panels or photovoltaics. This next slide shows how the relationship of the houses to the existing ones. The new houses are on the left-hand side, the 1.5 story one, then the single story one, the ground slopes downwards, and then you've got the properties at the back of the Mundayshire Court. The middle slide shows the relationship to the Snipe, which has also got a sort of asymmetrical roof as well, and it shows there's a screen fence at the back of the Snipe, which is considered will afford privacy from the windows of the new house looking towards the bedroom windows. There's about a 7-metre back garden there, and then the Snipe sits about 7 metres back from there again. So that there's considered by in terms of amenity, we consider that the amenity is protected from the properties. There's concerns from the neighbours here about the loss of amenity and the fact that their property overlooks the upper floors and the garden area overlook towards the new properties, but that's not unusual in a village setting. And we don't believe that there's a loss of privacy or amenity to either property that's significant here. These are the bottom slides show the houses as you're looking along the access road, looking towards them, the 1.5 stories at the front, and then the single stories at the back, and the single stories at the front. So that slide is designed to sort of illustrate how they will be accommodated on the site. This is a visualisation from the applicants of showing the access road coming in, the houses on either side, and how they will sit ultimately within the wooded setting once the landscaping that they're proposing grows up as well. It's all native planting. This is the access from Strathspey Park. That's looking, the one on the left is looking back down to the road that's going to have minor upgrades, and then the one on the right is looking up the way. The properties on the left of that slide are Kincardie Road, the back of Kincardie Road. The property there, Glenanne, has got an access gate into the wood at the moment, and that will be closed off during construction because the site will have to be fenced off. But they'll be able to use it after the construction is finished. It's a sort of informal arrangement with the estate. Similarly, the Snipe and the property next along from there have got access into the site at the moment as well, onto the core path that runs along the back. That's unaffected. I can maybe show on a previous slide better. On this one here, on the left-hand side of the site there, you'll see that there's a planted area, a landscaped area, and it's just above there that the access comes in from the adjacent properties. So that's unaffected by the development. And during construction, that path that runs along the back of the Snipe will be kept open in order that people can access the woods. And it's only after construction that it'll be encompassed into the gardens. So there's a construction traffic plan that shows how access on the site will be managed, and that's considered acceptable by our access officers. So that's that one, and then that's just the general site. As you look west over it, the one on the left is slightly higher up, and then the one on the right is lower down, and you can see through there the roofs of the houses on Dayshire Road, on Dayshire Court rather. This is more views across the site. This is looking up towards the Glenanne property. And then these are the network of paths. As you're looking east across the site, you can see the existing paths and the kind of condition of the site, the sort of trees and some clearings. This is the boundary to the north. Up on the right-hand side, that's the Snipe, the adjacent property, and the existing screen fence. You'll see it sits slightly higher up its garden. And then there's that trodden path there running along in the top left-hand slide. That's the core path that runs along the back of the property that's going to be eventually encompassed in the gardens of the single-storey properties and then realigned through the site. It was felt that that was more appropriate than keeping the path there, because otherwise there would have been the back gardens of the new properties. There would have just been this narrow corridor where people could walk along, and there was no natural surveillance for people in terms of the users of the path. So it's felt more appropriate that it would be included in the gardens there. In terms of the planning considerations here, it's the principle of development is already established by the existing consent in line with policy at the time. Affordable, it will deliver affordable housing, not at 25% is the recommended level for Boat of Garton. This will deliver 50% affordable housing. So it was originally approved as an exception site, and it delivers 50%, and there is proposed planning conditions to ensure that those two affordable properties are kept as such. The environmental impacts have been considered in terms of the wildlife there. There's proposal, we're suggesting planning conditions that there should be a pre-construction survey for red squirrel just before the start work. That was the only species that was found from the ecology surveys that were carried out, and the loss of the trees is compensated for adequately in line with policy elsewhere. Landscape impact, we feel, is fairly minor in terms of the townscape of the village. It'll fit in just at the edge of the village there, and the design of the properties is considered to be entirely appropriate in this wooded setting and actually of a good quality. We do feel that the amenity of the surrounding area will not be adversely affected to a degree that would warrant refusal of this application. There will be obviously an effect on neighbouring properties who will no longer have this open outlook onto the woodland, but that's not a reason to resist the application. The drainage is being satisfactory after quite a lot of discussion with the roads department. Who will be taking over that SADS feature, has been now satisfactorily resolved, and to the satisfaction of all the technical consultees, the flood risk management team and the roads department, and access is also satisfactory. So all in all, the site can be adequately serviced. It's delivering much needed affordable housing in Boat of Garton, and the design and the landscaping is entirely appropriate in our view. So we're recommending approval of this application subject to conditions that are just securing the implementation of the drainage, the compensatory planting and so on. So on that basis, we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. I'll just say at this stage that the applicant's agent, Ian Livesley, is with us. Good morning, Ian, welcome. He's not going to present, but he is on hand to answer questions. So, members, do we have any questions for Catherine or Ian? Michael Williamson.
Thank you. I noticed that the Arboreal Cultural Impact Assessment dates from 2020, and because there's already been in principle in so I take it that that report therefore doesn't need to be brought up to date.
No, we didn't consider that was necessary. The report is of the assessing the trees at that time, and I guess if anything, their condition would have got potentially, maybe less good over the period of 5 years. But no, they were just assessing the various trees on site, what trees were on site, what trees would have to be removed to accommodate the condition of all the trees, and then we would know what trees were being removed. And then we got the landscape plan, which showed what sort of native planting they would be proposing in their place. But they were outlining whether it was Scots pine, what the different species were. So no, I don't think it was necessary to update it.
Okay, thank you. Eleanor McIntosh.
Thanks, Chair. It's a question for the agent. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine, Eleanor. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see the affordable housing coming forward, and I welcome the initiative and hope it progresses quickly. I just wondered if there was any consideration given to the two open market houses, if they could be considered to be locally advertised first. That's been done in previous applications, and I just wondered if you would consider it if you haven't already.
Thanks, Eleanor. Ian's just taking his seat here. Did you catch the question, Ian?
I did. I did. It's maybe more of a question for the developer Communities Housing Trust. Rob Humphrey here is from Communities Housing Trust. I've maybe dodged that one and pass that to Rob.
Hi. Yes, we did. So Seaford Estate do have an agreement with us to just advertise the private housing locally. I don't think I think that's something they've done previously, and that's kind of what had been proposed to us in the discussions that we've had with regard to buying the site from them.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Catherine? Steve.
Yeah, just a quick one over access with this core path being lost. I'm assuming from what I saw that access is now through the road and then into the woods that way. Is that how it works now?
Yes, that's correct. At the moment, you can walk in from Strathspey Park and walk along that trodden path at the back of the Snipe. But now you'll be able to walk in Strathspey Park and walk round there's a footpath at the edge of the road that goes through the development. So you'll be able to walk along that, and then the path is then going to be continued on to connect on to where it would have come out before. So yes, the core path is still in place.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions, members? Okay, thank you. Could you retake your seats, please, gentlemen? Thank you very much. I'd now like to welcome Sheena and Mary Wilson this morning. Good morning, ladies. Is it Sheena's going to speak on behalf of the objector, Caroline Wilson? So, in your own time, Sheena, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of my mum, Mrs. Wilson, I'm making this presentation, so thank you. First of all, we are objecting. We would like the meeting to consider the detrimental impact of the proposed new development to the Snipe and the surrounding area. We feel it fails on 6 National Planning Framework Policy 4, or NPF 4 policies, and I'll hopefully try and outline them. The major first points are the infiltration of water onto the property at the Snipe has not been fully addressed. Then the other main point I'm going to talk about is the removal of the footpath, as this is a right-of-way at the back of the property, and we would like it to be reinstated if the proposal is going to go ahead in some way. And as it's a buffer, I'll go over that again. And I also feel it's a detrimental impact of the layout because of the proposed new houses, especially because our property is overlooked and the new development is overlooked. So we're both at a detrimental with the overlooking. I've got, going back to one of the planning slides, I think we've not got very good slides, I'm afraid. Mary's going to try and get slide number 7 up. The water infiltration potential to the Snipe. So the aspect of the slope coming from the development down and hitting our boundary fence as a dip into our back garden. And sorry, I'm talking as in my mum's back garden. And that low area on the development has not been tested for low water. And the test site was 10 metres away. And if you look at the topography of the site, Mary, I think that's on plan, this one, slide 6. The contours of the development on slide 6, Mary. That's other way. Oh, there, slide 6. The back garden of the new proposed houses 1 and 3, you can see that there's contour lines and it's low at that point. We definitely feel that the infrastructure, the infiltration as of water, and it was documented on the first agency report, which was the drainage impact assessment on the 9th of March 2021, and that was a page 4.2, topography survey states any surface water runoff will be discharged from the site by infiltration onto adjoining land. And we don't feel that the SUDS car parking area is enough to cope with the water coming down. It's not been proven. You haven't done any test sites for us and not looked at our drainage onto the land there. On the footpath, it gets boggy, and there's a footpath picture. This one, anyway. So we don't feel that's been properly addressed. Inadequate drainage. Three test sites were done way back in 2001. Further one that was done this year in September was 10 metres up. Maybe that's slide 2, and which is this slide. That one where the green ski stick was where the test site was, and you can look at the visual impact going down to the fence line, and that's a slope. Water goes down. We feel that inadequate proof of no risk of surface water has been done. Policy 22 in NPF, page 75C, fails this criteria. The development proposal will not increase the risk. Looks like it's not proving that it doesn't increase the risk of surface water flooding onto others or itself be a risk. So I'd like that to be looked at further. No capacity, and also the no capacity of local water treatment plant, no capacity of groundwater going into the local plant is really noted, that there's no sewage water, or the sewage can go but no runoff can go, and we just don't think that there's enough evidence to say that the runoff, these little SUDS car park areas will cope with that. We also feel that the proposed Sokoe drainage is to be maintained by the new occupants, and this is rented accommodation, and we don't think that the occupants will adequately take ongoing responsibility and be unaware of the risk and the concerns over the years. That's how do you keep on top of that? This is not an effective management plan, so that fails. The policy 20 on NPF 4, page 70. Sorry, I'm getting a wee bit muddled up with my wee slides I've got. The right-of-way that we've got along the back, we say it's a right-of-way. It's also a core path being designated. It's not unsafe. We don't feel, I think it was in the original development plan way back many years ago that there was a footpath by the developers. The developers themselves had left it in. I think the National Park Planning Office suggested that it was going to be an unsafe route. There's a public lamppost right at the corner here, and this area that's on this slide on the footpath is actually well lit, and there's no other part of the path that goes further on. It's completely dark, so it's not unsafe, and it's not risk of being enclosed. It would create a buffer and be a potentially useful continuous core path, and there should be no reason why it is removed. It helps create a buffer between properties. It's a core path. It is used, and historically it's been a path that's been there where locals have chopped down seedlings and helped prevent fire by clearing it as a fire break. As some of the older residents of the village have said, that this path, they remember clearing and cutting down seedlings to keep a fire break between the village. It fails policy 29, rural development, as it's not sustainable in terms of siting, design, environmental impact criteria are not met. We also feel that the proposed, if there is going to be a development behind us, the proposed site is not, it's only, their fence is 1.2. The fence in the back garden of our property is just under 2 metres. It's a tall fence. We are impacted, we are overlooked, and its angle of the slope means the eye level of any new development in the patio of our back door. The umbrella is eye level in the proposed development, and that's the view from the upstairs. And then the view from the back door looks across just an under 2 metre. This is from our deck on our back door, stepping down. We've got a wee deck. And view from the snipe, that's actually inside, sitting at my dining table, and I can look across the fence and the umbrella head height inside what would be a site of one of the rooms in one of the developments. So the impact is overlooked. We're going to overlook them. They're going to get overlooked by us. So I think that is a major implication for all properties in this area. And what else I've got to say? I think I've got a little film, Emma, that you could maybe fit. That's a video that's taken from upstairs, looking down on the proposed development site. I think so. That's from a bathroom window. The umbrella is the line of the property. It would be a window area. And from and all those trees and brushes, it's an angle of the slope. And there's a ski stick there, that's right to the carport and the end of the boundary. So that whole area along there is going to be looking right onto a roof and right into the windows. And there's no way that we're not going to be looking in. It's a patio full-length window door into bedrooms. And there's two houses right opposite. I just think it's an inconsiderate design that has been proposed, and we would be looking at the development being resited.
You have just less than a minute left if you want to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. We feel that fails policy NPF4, policy 16, quality home, new development, do not have a detriment. It has a detrimental impact on the neighbouring properties in terms of physical impact, overshadowing and overlooking is implemented. Summing up, negative impact on all properties in that area, fails on 6 NPF policies, loss of public right of way, bad siting plan, detrimental impact, overlooking, risk of flooding, and capacity for the drainage for the locals as well. And we also then feel that they've already had a negative impact on the wildlife. There's been trees already removed, loss of habitat from the bats, evidence of squirrels, and recently the very active capercaillie breeding is not far away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheena. Members, do we have any questions for Sheena? Okay, thank you. Did you want a question? So, okay. Hey, Anne Ross.
Thank you. You've spoken about water infiltration at the back of, infiltration, and I saw the slide and you said there was a slope, and you don't feel that the Suds car parking, I'm going to call it a Suds pond, is adequate enough. What would you like to see the developer do regarding that, please? That's my first question. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel it needs to be properly tested. Other test sites taken to prove and a slightly different some sort of drainage, but also moving the site so it's not going to be a boggy area between two back gardens. And so, yeah, it needs to be re-examined.
Thank you. Can I come back?
Yes, carry on, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you. Is your garden boggy at the moment?
It can be wet, yes.
Okay, thank you. And regarding the footpath, we've been told that it'll be moved so that there still will be, my understanding from what's been said, there still will be a core path. Can I ask, I mean, I understand that, you know, you said the village people from the village had maintained the footpath by cutting down young trees or saplings or whatever to keep the path open, and it was lit by a street light. What is your objection, your actual objection to it being moved to go through? I think it was the gardens they said it was going to go through.
I don't want it moved. I want it to stay. So I want the footpath to stay. It also creates a buffer between the properties, and it just means there's not going to be, if there's a footpath there, it's not going to be a detrimental for properties. But long term, I'd like the site to be slightly moved so it doesn't cause a problem for drainage. But it's the suds that's the main thing. It's not been examined properly.
Okay, thank you. And finally, you mentioned, sorry, but we're getting bounced back. You mentioned capercaillie breeding not far away. How far away are the capercaillie breeding? And will they be disturbed by this, in your view?
I think it's well documented that the capercaillie have been increasing in the Botagarten Wood vicinity. I think the recent amount of capercaillie activity this summer, the capercaillie have been noted very, very close to the village hall, up less than half a kilometre away. I've personally seen, which up in the Fairy Hill area. I've got 4 dogs and I walked right past the capercaillie. I don't think the re-established, the well-protected, the capercaillie project is doing a good job, and I don't think it's been re-examined, the recent better activity of the capercaillie in the area. It's not been taken into new consideration. I haven't seen anything new.
Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Okay, thank you. John Kirk.
Thank you. I don't know, maybe a question for the developer here, or the issue of if the garden is wet and you're happy to leave the path where it is, but dig the path up and put it in as a French drain below the path, so that it's a win for the Wilsons, so their garden's not wet and any water doesn't get that far, and just by moving the whole thing a couple of metres back, is that possible?
The initial proposal was to keep the path, but in discussion, I think, with Catherine, planning officer, it was decided that there could be it would have to be quite a narrow path, and we felt, yes, it wouldn't be attractive to walk along a narrow path with fences either side. I think part of the reason why it is boggy there is because it is a trampled path, so it's compacted earth, so it's probably gathering water. So yeah, I think you're right. You could drain that section better, but our main strategy has been to try and intercept as much water as possible before it gets to that low point. The objector is quite right. That is the low point where that path is. So we have done a lot of work, and Catherine will attest to this as well, a lot of work on the suds and groundwater infiltration. And it's not correct that we haven't done test pits in the right areas. We've specifically done them in the areas where it's needed. The most recent one was done exactly where the suds feature is that will take the road surface water. And I'll stress that that's just taking the road water. All other water, rainwater that falls on the site is dealt locally. So gardens have their own soakaway features, and in general the slope is being decreased across the site, so there'll be less water falling off the site towards the north. So we have done a lot of work on that. It's not that we haven't considered that at all. There's been a lot of work on that. Also, late in the day, we did reinstate part of that path, so there is specifically access to the snipe straight onto that path. So a remnant of that bit of that path does remain in consideration of the objection there. But we feel we've done what we need to do in terms of diverting the path to other places. Most people going into the woods, they're not going to just hug that fence line on the north boundary. They're going to want to go deeper into the woods, and the new paths we're creating through the site do exactly that. They direct you into the woods proper.
But surely just for 100 metres past a couple of houses that give both lots of houses privacy, a fence is not going to be of any distraction to anybody walking. You know, it just gives privacy.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't like to comment whether, for privacy and so on, are you better to have the path there with dog walkers, kids running up, like bicycles going past all the time, or do you have a house, you know, a garden neighbour, you know who your neighbour is, hopefully, and you get, you know, I don't know which is the, you know, is a better situation.
Okay,
Does that answer?
Thank you. Steve, do you have any questions for the objectors, specifically for the objectors at the moment?
Yeah, that was about the path. So as I would understand it, you want that path retained, and then people are then walking through a kind of narrow corridor with a fence on one side that's your boundary and a fence on the new development side. So they're going to be walking through a corridor. Is that right?
It doesn't have to be a corridor. It's, I think the proposed fence is 1.2 metres high. Our garden fence has a high fence, but a 1.2 high fence is not a high fence. That's what's proposed, and it is just the shortest route up through the village to the football pitch, to the pump track. People use that every day going to the post office from the north end of the west end of the village. So it is. It's the quickest route, and most people are not going to go there. If you're going to go up through the development, it will add on time. Children going to school use it, going on their bike in the bike bus. Kids have come through there.
Okay, thank you. A question from Jiva Blackett. Morning, Jiva.
Yeah, morning, Russell. Thank you. My question's not for the objector. It's about something that the objector said, and we've spent an awful lot of money, both public and lottery money, on the Capercaillie for the past 30 years, and yet the planners haven't actually mentioned the Capercaillie. So I wonder if we could possibly have some comment from our team on that situation.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, a habitat regulation appraisal was carried out at the planning and principles stage and concluded that the small increase in the development on a heavily, so an area of ground that was used quite heavily by the public was not going to have any detrimental effect in the Capercaillie in the area. And that principle was established then, that for development, for houses wouldn't have an adverse effect on the designated site, and that remains our view on it.
Can I come back on that, please? Because what the objector said was that there's been increased Capercaillie activity this year, and in the pre-development stage that was before this year. So I just wonder what the really up-to-date view is. Sorry to labour this point, but I think it's really important.
Okay, thanks, Jiva. I'll ask Gavin Miles to come in just now.
Yeah, Jiva. So two different things here. One is that this is because the principle of this development has already been accepted and the impacts on Capercaillie were assessed at that point. So that stands. So this is just considering the details of the application and whether they're acceptable. None of the details that are before you change the nature of impacts on Capercaillie. And while Capercaillie have been doing well in Botagarton Woods, that's also in the context of those woods being incredibly busy. So just a couple of 100 metres away further into the woods, there's the very popular recent pump track, mountain bike pump track, that's used by lots of kids around Botagarton and from actually much wider area as well as adults. The woods are full of paths that are promoted. There's a lot of work done by both RSPB and our own rangers in those woods as well, around making sure that people are behaving as well as they can in those woods in terms of disturbance to Capercaillie. So the whole area is very well managed for them, and that's why the Capercaillie may be doing better there, although there are lots of other potential factors involved. So there's nothing in the application today that changes the nature of impacts on Capercaillie in the woods.
Thank you. I just really wanted that clarified publicly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jiva. Thank you, Gavin. Eleanor McIntosh.
Sorry, convener, I just wondered if the applicant was finished, the objector was finished. Could I move back into the room, because I think I might be the cause of the feedback, and I'm also blocking a staff area.
Okay, Eleanor, thank you. Do we have any more questions specifically for the objectors? Okay, thank you very much, ladies. Could you retake your seats? Thank you very much. Hey, Catherine, would you like to come back on any points that have been raised?
Yes, if I could come back on the drainage, the matter of the drainage, which has been very well covered by everybody, but we did get an email from the applicant's engineers sort of explaining a wee bit more about the drainage, and it maybe be helpful for me to read it. They're saying at present, they're confirming that the potential impact on the existing properties to the north has been fully considered in the drainage design, which we believe it has, and the flood risk management team are satisfied with it. So are the roads department and the drainage that they're taking over. But I think the applicant's main concern is the drainage within the garden area rather than the SADS part. And they're saying that at present runoff, the engineers, from the forested area naturally flows north towards the existing neighbours. Under the proposed layout, this will be significantly improved. Road water and driveway runoff will be directed to a dedicated soakaway located at the front of the new properties. Road surface water will be diverted to a separate road soakaway, preventing it from flowing towards the neighbouring gardens. The only remaining water directed northward will pass through planted green garden areas, which provide natural attenuation, as the proposed ground levels here have also been carefully adjusted to reduce the existing slopes to gentler gradients, so allowing surface water to infiltrate the soil more effectively. They've also suggested, and I don't know if the applicant can elaborate on that, but a land drain at the rear of the gardens has been incorporated to intercept and redirect garden runoff westward towards the forest. So that's in the new houses garden. Any runoff will be directed so that it's going into the woods rather than down the way. So I think we're satisfied that the drainage within the garden has been fully looked at.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Members, we'll move to debate, and we'll come to Eleanor McIntosh.
Okay, it was really a quick question for Catherine on something that the objector said, and that was with regard to the ongoing responsibility of the drainage lying with the occupants of the rented properties. And given that the occupants are likely to be elderly, frail, is that realistic? Is that a planned matter?
Not sure it's a sort of they've set out in their drainage statement what the maintenance is going to be, and our planning condition says it should be maintained as per the maintenance that's set out in the drainage impact assessment, and that's how it should be maintained. And if there was issues, then our enforcement officer would be able to look into it and see what had gone wrong. We're not really sort of involved in who the occupants are and their ability to do that, but I would have thought that if it's rented out, presumably by the housing trust, that they would be having some sort of input into how they were helping their elderly residents. Yeah.
Ian, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I can maybe elaborate on that. I think I've just spoken with Rob from CHT, so you're right, the properties are rented and could be rented by people in wheelchairs. So, but ultimately, the developer CHT would be responsible for any maintenance. So it'd fall on them. So it probably is better. You know, maintenance would be insured.
Okay, thank you. Mike Williamson.
Thanks very much, Convener. Excuse me. I was just wondering if Catherine can help me just for a bit of guidance or context. It's my understanding that the drainage systems that need to be put in are to capture surface water coming off hard standing surfaces and the roof. Is that correct in this case? And have they exceeded what is required of them? Or the developers exceeded what's required of them?
No, they're basically addressing what is required of them. They've got to provide drainage for the any hard standing areas, as you say, and roof water, and that's been done within the soakaways within the individual gardens for those properties. But they've also got to provide drainage for the proper access road that's serving all the properties, and they've got to provide road drainage for that, and that's what they're doing through the SADS feature. So there's two sort of separate parts to the drainage, and they're addressing it as most developers would do. So they're just doing what they've got to do essentially, and they're doing it to a standard that's the SADS feature that's going to be that's serving the main road, the service road, that will be adopted by the roads department, and that was part of the delay when we were trying to get the drainage sorted out for that, was to make sure it was to an adoptable standard. So we're actually, that part of it is good, and that it's going to be adopted by the authority, the roads authority, so that will be maintained onwards, and then the private gardens will be maintained in the manner that Eleanor was discussing.
And a second quick question is about the garden spaces, particularly at the rear. I understand there's a minimum garden space that's supposed to be in place for developments such as this. Is that correct?
We don't have a specific policy in the National Park partner in our development plan about minimum garden areas. Some authorities do, but we don't. But the garden area in this case is 7 metres, which we would say was certainly adequate for this development.
Okay, thank you. Anne Ross.
Thank you. Just for clarification and confirmation, from what I've heard what the objector said, and I think it was the developer that was speaking just now, that the tenants will not be responsible for the drainage. It will be the owners of the property that will be responsible ultimately for any problems regarding the drainage and runoff, etc. Is that was my understanding from what the developer said just now? Am I correct?
Catherine, would you like to answer that?
That's my understanding from what the developer said as well. And in terms of the planning conditions, it's what's written down in terms of what they're going to be doing in terms of maintenance, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Kenny Deans.
Thanks, Convener. It was just for clarity, the objector mentioned and showed a slide of the point where the drainage was tested. It seemed quite an elevated situation. Are you confirming that what the developer said was that the drainage was tested at the low point as part of that assessment?
I'm looking at the extract of the test pits that were carried out. There was one carried out where the access, where at the left-hand side of the property, plot number 3 that backs onto the Snipe, it was done and where the driveway is going to be. But there was also a test pit done just at the edge of where the new plot is, where the new house is, which is not in the bottom where the right beside where the Snipe is, but it's in the general vicinity of the just beside the rear gardens.
There was no test point.
So you can't.
There was no test pit in the rear garden area. No, but that's not where they're proposing to put the permeable driveways and the soakaway under the permeable driveways, and that's where we would normally expect a drainage test to be done, is under where you're actually going to put the feature to make sure it's going to work there. So from our perspective, and the flood risk management team, yes, the drainage tests were done in a suitable position.
Okay, members, thank you. Is there anything anyone else would like to raise? Okay, thank you. The officer's recommendation is to approve. Is anyone minded to propose anything different? Okay. So is anyone minded to propose anything other than the officer's approval? Derek Ross.
Sorry, Chair, are we not going into discussion? Or is...
Discussion.
Oh, I see.
The discussion about 20 minutes ago, people kept asking questions.
I see, so...
So
Okay.
we're now moving it forward, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
So if there's nothing else, then the application is approved. Thank you. I would just say, members, that I did say when we were going into debate, and at that stage we should be in debate, and then people kept asking questions. So if we could ask questions when there's questions and then debate when there's debate, that would be good. Thank you. So, members, just pause for a second. There's one or two members who have taken a comfort break. So, and here he comes. Okay, members, we'll move on to item 6. This is for decision. It's a Kailaki wind farm, and this is introduced by Emma Bryce. Morning, Emma.
Morning, thank you, Convener. Morning, everyone. So this application is for the decision on the Kailaki wind farm. So the site lies on an elevated moorland within the Monaliath, within the Kailaki and Dilmagari estates. It's approximately 2.8 kilometres southwest of Tomatin, with the A9 lying approximately a kilometre to the east. The site lies relatively close to the national park. On this plan, you can see it's the yellow line in the bottom right-hand corner, and the nearest turbine would be approximately 5.5 kilometres from that boundary. So the proposal is for a wind farm and its associated infrastructure. The wind farm would comprise of 13 turbines, and these would all have a maximum blade tip height of 180 metres. Given their height, aviation lighting is required on all the turbines. So this slide is the zone of theoretical visibility, and it shows that how visible the wind turbines will be. It's not clear on this plan, sorry, the quality isn't particularly great, but the bottom right-hand kind of quadrant of this slide shows the national park. And the colours here are showing that where there's pink colours, the visibility will show up to 4 turbines. Where the blue areas are shown, that shows between 5 and 9 turbines, and the purple areas are showing where all 10 to 13 of the turbines will be visible. So this is demonstrating that the proposed wind farm will be relatively visible from more higher points within the national park boundary. The next slide is just showing the contextually where the wind farm will sit within the current operational ones, which are in the blue, consented ones in the purple, in planning yellow, and scoping green. You can see where the proposed wind turbine is located by the red dots, and it's directly beside the existing Glenkillahie wind farm. A number of viewpoints were taken, 4 of which lie within the national park boundary. And viewpoint 13, viewpoint 15, and viewpoint 16 all show the proposed wind farm, but these viewpoints are essentially from the boundary of the park, so as close as you could get from the park to the wind farm. And then there was a viewpoint taken from Cairngorm Summit, which shows the proposed wind farm. Now, the images that they've included in their submission don't show existing wind farms. These images are only showing the proposed wind farm. So in terms of what you saw in that contextual, this would sit within the context of some existing wind farms within that area. There's a cluster of them this far, and there's the existing Glenkillahie, so there would be visible turbines, but within their submission they've just focused on the turbines that are being proposed. So Nature Scott responds, you're all aware from previous casework that we do have a casework agreement with Nature Scott, who provides a landscape advice in relation to developments out with the park boundary. And they provide advice for us to inform our consultation response to the energy consents units on these types of development. So in terms of the baseline conditions used for the assessment, there are several, as I stated, operational and consented wind farms within the area. The existing operational Glenkillahie and Far wind farms are closest to the park boundary, and within this cluster, and given the proximity of the proposed wind farm to these, the proposed wind farm could be perceived as an extension to those existing, in particular the Glenkillahie, although it's a wind farm proposal on its own. In terms of views from the national park, these existing wind farms appear as distant and compact features within the wider landscape. From higher elevations within the park, where they're visible, they're perceived very much as distant features. So as such, these operational and consented wind farms have a relatively limited influence, both individually and cumulatively, on the SLQs of the park due to their distance, heights, which are all below 150 metres to blade tip, and lack of turbine lighting and interspersed pattern of development. The proposed wind farm, by virtue of turbine heights of 180 metres with associated aviation lighting, would appear much more prominent in comparison. In their assessment, Nature Scott therefore consider it would result in significant adverse effects on the SLQ 28, which is wildness, during daytime hours and extending into effects after dark. They also consider that the proposed aviation lighting would introduce significant adverse effects on SLQ 32, dark skies. In terms of the other SLQ that is affected, which is the SLQ 32, which is grand panoramas and frame views, they don't consider it would introduce a change that would significantly detract from the experience of this SLQ. So in assessing the overall impacts, they've concluded that collectively the significance of the effects on the SLQs of the national park are not of a degree that would damage the unity or soundness of the national park, and therefore they would not affect its integrity. Furthermore, they consider the identified significant effects could be mitigated through reduction in turbine height, which would remove the need for the aviation lighting. This option has already been considered by the applicants, who are currently liaising with the Civil Aviation Authority Board on a scheme incorporating a reduction in turbine heights and reduced lighting. So in terms of our appraisal and recommendation, In summary, the proposed wind farm would introduce turbines and associated lighting, which would appear much more prominent within the existing cluster of wind turbines. However, notwithstanding, it would result in significant effects on 2 SLQs collectively. It's not considered that it would compromise integrity of the national park. It's therefore considered that the nature, extent and level of significant adverse effects caused by the addition of the Killahee wind farm to the baseline of operational and consented wind farms has to be seen to meet the requirements of National Park Partnership Plan policies C2A and A4, and in turn NPF4 policies 4 and 11. It's recognised that a reduction in height and the removal of the required aviation lighting would contribute to minimising the identified significant effects. We're therefore recommending that the National Park Authority should not object, however, subject to the applicants investigating the suggested mitigation measures. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, Emma. Members, are there any questions for Emma? Eleanor McIntosh.
Yeah, Emma, it's the dark skies one that I'm thinking about. I think the mitigation, or the way it's framed, to me it sounds weak. I would like to see it much stronger, because have we not got a duty, having signed up to the Dark Skies Park around Tomintoul and Glenlivet, to safeguard dark skies? And given that you can see Aberdeen lights on a clear night, you're going to see that aviation lights. So I think it's much more significant than what the report is being made out to be. And okay, I'm not moving for an objection, but I'm looking for a lot stronger wording on the mitigation.
Yeah, we've actually had a chat internally about this since the report was written, and we're kind of in agreement with you. So we feel that maybe it would be better that we maybe were a bit stronger in terms of the recommendation that we're putting forward, and maybe put forward something along the lines that we're not objecting unless they investigate a significant reduction in the turbine lightings, which would require the removal. They wouldn't need the aviation lighting at all if they were significantly reduced. So I think we would perhaps maybe amend our recommendation to that wording, if that would give you more reassurance.
Kelly, happy?
I'm thinking about it.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Kenny Deans.
Thanks, convener. I'm a little bit surprised. It's a bit like Eleanor's thing. So the recommendation is not to object. I would have thought the recommendation should be to object, subject to the mitigation. You know, yeah, I don't understand. Usually, I know it's not a straightforward planning application in the sense that we normally do it, but if we're unhappy with the proposal before us, which is 150 metres with lighting, then we object to that. Is that not our position? And if they wanted to change it, which is in their licence, then I dare say we could look at it. But the application that's there is something that's factual and genuine, not reduced lighting, not reduced width. This is what's before us, and I'm not sure we shouldn't reverse that. That's just a thought. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we are informed by Nature Scott, so we do go along on the basis of their advice. You know, they carry out a comprehensive assessment of the proposals, and it is out with the park. So, you know, we tend to go on along with what their advice is. I think there's maybe been one case in the past where we had a difference of opinion. So it's up to committee members if you wanted to have a different opinion from Nature Scott, but we'd have to have strong justification for that. We'd have to be quite firm in what your views are, because we haven't, as an individual organisation, undertaken that assessment. They have done that on our behalf and have done a thorough investigation of the impacts on the SLQs, and their conclusion is as explained in the report. So, you know, it would be your view collectively as a planning committee if you wanted to, you know, contravene that recommendation by Nature Scott to be seen to be objecting to it, as opposed to what Nature Scott are saying, that they're not raising objections because the effects aren't that significant to impact on the integrity of the park. But I think we would be getting a message through by saying, we're really concerned about the impacts, and that we would, as an organisation, be looking for the applicants to be investigating, and they could reconsider. We're getting the message by perhaps saying that we would potentially be objecting if they will not look at that mitigation to ensure that those impacts are addressed. But again, it's committee's decision on that. It's just, as I say, we go on the basis normally of what Nature Scott are recommending, because of, their well-informed officers have done that assessment and come to that conclusion. But I say, as planning committee have an alternative conclusion to that based on what we've got, then that's really up to yourselves on how we'd report back to ECU.
Eleanor, is it on the same thing, or do you want to come in later? Okay, Eleanor, I'll let you back in just now.
It was just on the fact that the Nature Scott report, unless I missed it, didn't mention the Dark Sky Park in Tomintoul and Glenlivet. And I thought they should. But maybe I missed it.
Let Dave Berry in just now.
Thanks, Convener. I think given the distance, I think is the reason that wasn't specifically referenced. They've obviously looked at the SLQ Dark Skies SLQ 32 in terms of the impact that the development is expected to have. On the point around our position on this, I think it is important that obviously Nature Scott haven't objected to the application themselves. And as Emma said, we are generally reliant on their advice in relation to the impact of proposals outside of the national park on the SLQ, so we need to be a little bit careful around that. We could maybe, though, look at alternative wording in terms of our response. So it could be, for example, no objection, but the applicant is strongly recommended to consider the mitigation measures, or words to that effect, which in the same way as Nature's got to stop short of outright objecting, could potentially put that across slightly more strongly.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Fiona McLean.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I suppose in a way David just answered what I was going to suggest, because I also, along with Kenny, had concerns about the use of particularly the word investigation, subject to investigation, because how could you hold them to mitigating if you're just asking them to investigate? So I think the much strongly recommend, I would be much happier with the use of that terminology in our response. So yeah, just to agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. Lauren McCallum.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. And I think other members have kind of picked up my my kind of point. But just for clarification, I mean, to Kenny's point, we're always asked to assess the application that's in front of us, and the application that's in front of me right now, I don't think is satisfactory. So if we aren't happy with that, what is the implications of moving towards refusal? Can somebody just explain that to me a little bit better?
Okay, Dave, Morgan.
Well, if I come in first, Convener, and then I can hand over to Peter as well. It's important to remember that we're not the determining authority on this, so it's the Energy Consent Unit that will ultimately be determining this application. So we're being asked for our views as a consultee to the process. So we're not in a position to refuse or approve anything here. We're simply formulating a response to that. Now, there is a process which the ECU go through, and there are certain parties that can trigger an automatic public inquiry if they object to a proposal I'll hand over to Peter to talk you through the implications around that a little bit more. But essentially, it's the local planning authority that has that capacity to trigger an automatic public inquiry if they object to a proposal. That is not us in this instance. That would sit with the Highland Council. As far as I'm aware at the moment, the last time I looked, I don't think Highland Council had determined its position on this, so we're not fully able to brief you on whether Highland Council are objecting or not. That decision hasn't been taken. I'll maybe hand over to Peter in terms of the implications of an objection from the Park Authority and what that might mean.
Okay. Thanks, David. Excuse me. David's covered most of what I was going to say, but as he explains, an objection from the local planning authority, Highland in this case, would trigger a mandatory public inquiry. Objections by other parties, whether they be statutory consultees such as CNPA or members of the public, those objections can be grounds for a discretionary public inquiry, but that would be at the decision of the Scottish ministers. So an objection wouldn't have any direct effects, but it would be part of, assuming for these purposes no objection from Highland, then it would be part of something the ministers would need to consider.
Steve McCoy.
Yeah, I didn't understand this at all, to be honest with you. We've got a planning application with very tall towers and aviation lighting. We've got significant effects because of SLQs, and now we're just going to recommend that they reduce the height. It does seem incredibly weak. I personally think we should be objecting, and because the application in front of us has these significant impacts, and there's no guarantee that by not making our voice loudly heard that those turbines will be reduced in height. So this seems like really weird logic to me that I don't understand.
Pete Cosgrove.
In my experience of working on over 50 wind farm applications across Scotland, the clients invariably say they can't reduce the height of turbines because they're built now to a particular height and that they can't seriously reduce them. So most of the mitigations I discuss are to do with things like the specific locations of the turbines, the lighting itself, but actually getting an applicant to reduce the height of turbines now, they tend to fall back on a well, they don't build them any smaller than this anymore, and we have to use the standard models. And I've had that successive projects I've been involved with, so it's just going in with open eyes and what mitigation may be possible. It's worth us considering that.
Okay, thank you. We seem to be sliding into debate now, which is fine, but if there are no more questions, specifically questions, then we will move to debate. Gav.
I was maybe just trying to sort of condense some of the things here into what's actually important or not important. So we've got a wind farm the other side of Strathdown from the national park boundary. So it's actually quite a long way away. It's set in the context of an existing wind farm. So were there not any lighting, NatureScot wouldn't have said what they've said. Now they've said there are significant effects, basically because so far none of the other consented or approved wind farms in that area have nighttime lighting on them. So what they're saying is you can see them in the day, they have effects on bits of the national park. At night time, that goes away because you stop seeing them. Whereas in future, if this is given consent, then there will be bright lights up in the sky. Still quite a distance from the national park, but you will see these bright lights. So that's the kind of the crux of this. It's not going to affect a lot of the national park. It's going to affect you more or less when you're on top of the hills, right on the boundary. So they don't think it has a significant effect on the integrity of the national park, but they do think it has a significant effect on that nighttime special landscape quality. So if we're going to object, I think it should be really clear that it's purely about that, because we don't, if we're then having to defend that objection, we wouldn't want to have to get into all sorts of other arguments that actually we don't have a strong basis for, given the other wind farms in that area. So just to kind of bring it back to the absolute crux of this, it's basically at night time there'll be some lights on these turbines which will be visible from inside the national park and have an impact on the special landscape quality at that times when the lights are visible, which isn't all the time.
Okay, thanks, Gav. Steve, would you like to come back?
Is that correct, Gavin? Because I thought I saw a picture with the wind farms visible from Cairngorm, right in the middle of the national park, with aviation lights on top of it. Sorry, that's not on the edge of the national park, is it?
Yeah, so my own view is that is probably a bit misleading, that image, because it doesn't show any of the existing wind farms which are already around that boundary. And that shows it in a way that it is, yeah, doesn't quite represent it. And NatureScot aren't saying that there are significant impacts. You can see lots of wind farms from the top of Cairngorm already in that area. And NatureScot aren't saying that that is a significant effect on the national park.
But they don't have lights on, Gavin. The new ones will. That's the difference.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to try and debate this. Obviously, from the top of Cairngorm, looking in that direction, though, you have all of the lights of Strathdown and then Inverness as well, and the Moray Firth, that are very, very bright and brighter than wind turbines would be. So any lights from the top of Cairngorm, you're going to struggle to notice the difference between them and the existing lighting that's around that area.
Okay, members, thank you. So we will move to debate now. Would anybody like to? Eleanor, sorry, you had a question. I forgot.
No, it's not a question. It's just I just think we need to be strong in this one, because we can all see the amount of new wind farm applications that are in the system, and it stands to reason that it's going to be more economical to put big, higher turbines, more powerful turbines, which will cause the need for aviation lights. So this is the first one coming through at this height with lights. If we're not strong in this one, every other one will come through. So I think, as a point of principle, we should be strong in this one and object on that one issue.
Okay, thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I think you know, listening to other members, I agree with kind of Steve and Eleanor, and I think Peter made a really good point that, you know, we can't build them any smaller because this is how they come. And I think the visual impacts, I get the point of lights for Inverness and things, but, you know, if you're looking at Cairngorm, you know, Gaelsharn, I do think that impact, or that, well, the SLQs there, I do think there is a significant impact on that, and I do think we need to be strong, because, yeah, like I say, the application that is before us, I don't think is satisfactory. So I would be willing to object or find another method to get that point over strongly that members feel confident will actually work.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Steve?
Yeah, I'm with Lauren on this one. I think we should be objecting, and I don't think it's satisfactory to say you've already got bright lights, therefore another bright light is acceptable. That's how things get eroded until you don't have it anymore. So I don't think that's a particularly good argument. So I would also move to object on this one.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Paul, good.
Yep, thank you very much. Interesting debate. I support the idea of being clearer. I think the number of times I've seen applications where we've had consultees who haven't been clear in their position when we're trying to reflect on papers. I'm not sure of the nature of what that objection looks like, but I'd be interested to hear from those that are willing to put forward an amendment when they go out of the room to structure that. But I think the clarity is important as a consultee.
Members, it would appear that we're moving towards an objection. So I'm going to suggest, do we have somebody who wants to propose the objection and second it? And then...
Or is, I mean, is there...
What I was going to say was, if somebody propose it and second it, then we'll adjourn and you can break out with Peter to make it very clear what the objection is, and then we can come back in. So if you want to object, somebody would have to put forward an objection and someone would second it and then break out with Peter.
Yeah, well, I'm
So-
happy to
Okay,
move.
so Lauren, someone going to second that, and Steve? Okay, members, we'll adjourn, and Lauren and Steve can break out with Peter. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We'll reconvene. So it looks like we have an amendment to the officer's recommendation, which was proposed by Lauren McCallum and seconded by Steve Micklewright, and Peter Ferguson's going to run us through the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Lauren and Steve asked me to summarise the amendment. So NatureScot concluded, and this is in paragraph 44 of the officer's report, NatureScot concluded that there would be significant adverse effects on two special landscape qualities, 28 and 32. NatureScot went on to assess those adverse impacts against NPF Policy 4. NPF Policy 4 relates to the objectives of designation and the integrity of the park, which is a fairly high test, and in NatureScot's view, those adverse impacts didn't adversely affect the integrity of the park. However, there is also policy C2A of the National Park Partnership Plan, and that in effect states that wind farms are, where outside the national park, wind farms are inappropriate where they would significantly adversely affect its landscape character or the special landscape qualities. So the motion, the amendment rather, is to object to the application on the basis that the negative effects as assessed by NatureScot breach policy C2A of the partnership plan.
Okay, thank you, members. Is anyone minded to move the officer's recommendation or to propose the officer's recommendation? Oh, pardon. On you go, Eleanor.
Yeah. Does that, can I just question that with Peter? Does that home in enough on the fact that our real objection is the height and the need for aviation lights? To me, it didn't quite get there, but...
It didn't specifically mention aviation lighting. However, NatureScot's conclusion in relation to policies SLQ 28 and 32 is based on aviation lighting. So it's bound up in if the members accept there is a breach of 28 and 32 based on, among other things, aviation lighting, then yes, it would be covered.
I suppose my query in my head is, I thought we were objecting solely on that, but are we now? I don't know what the other things are that we might be objecting to, because to me it was purely the height and therefore the need for lighting.
I think we are objecting for that. It's just that we're objecting because of the impacts that those features have on the national park. So the reason for our objection is in relation to the impacts on the national park, which are driven by the height and aviation lighting. Yeah.
Okay, members, are we happy to move to a vote? Alex, are you happy to do the vote?
Sorry, Russell, can we just clarify what the vote is?
Okay, so the officer's recommendation is for no objection, and the amendment from Lauren and Steve is to object for the reasons that Peter has told us. Mike, would you like to ask a question?
Just for clarity, the motion is for the officer's recommendation plus the amended wording to strengthen it, or are we just leaving it as the officer's recommendation as per the papers?
Did you say that you were going to strengthen the wording anyway, Emma?
we had internally had a conversation after we'd written the report and thought that perhaps then we should maybe word it strongly, so we could word it more strongly if members were keen for that to happen. And I think we would, as officers, agree that we could put stronger emphasis on the requirement for mitigation.
I think that's really confusing what's in front of us. We either approve what we've been presented with by officers, or we vote to amend, which is what we're proposing.
Yeah, okay. The advice is that we just keep it really simple. So it's either the officer's recommendation as it was presented to us, or the amendment from Lauren and Steve. Are we content to go to the vote? Okay, thanks, Alex.
Okay. Jiva Blackett.
Amendment.
Sandy Bremner.
Amendment.
Jackie Brereton.
Amendment.
Peter Cosgrove.
Amendment.
Kenny Deans.
Amendment.
Paul Gibb.
Amendment.
Hannah Grist.
Amendment.
Russell Jones.
Amendment.
John Kirk.
Amendment.
Steve Micklewright.
Amendment.
Lauren McCallum.
Amendment.
Eleanor McIntosh.
Amendment.
Ian McLaren.
Amendment.
Fiona McLean.
Amendment.
Duncan Miller.
Amendment.
Anne Ross.
Amendment.
Michael Williamson.
Amendment.
Okay, members, thank you. So that was unanimous that the amendment's carried. So we are going to object, and I'll just ask Peter to run over the grounds again, just so that there's no doubt.
Okay, so in summary, the grounds are that the proposed development, including its height and the requirement for aviation lighting, would result in significant adverse effects on special landscape qualities 28 and 32. And when assessed against policy C2A of the partnership plan, the proposal would significantly affect the landscape character and special landscape qualities of the national park.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you, members. We'll move on now to item 7. So this is for decision. It's an update of the Planning Enforcement Charter. The recommendation is to approve the updated Enforcement Charter and be introduced by Ed Swales. Hi, Ed.
Hi, thanks, Russell. Russell, pardon? Oh,
Derek.
How could we forget Derek? Sorry, we'll wait for Derek Ross. Okay, Derek Ross has rejoined us, and we will continue, and I'll ask Ed to carry on.
Yeah, so this is a review of the Enforcement Charter carried out annually. Whilst we're required to carry it out every 2 years, we do undertake this out annually. There's no adopted legislative changes within the Charter. However, there is a proposed amendment that charters will be required to include how an authority monitors major developments that we approve. So we've added a bit into the Charter ahead of that change. For the record, as it's said in the Charter, we won't actually monitor major developments any differently to local ones, simply with the nature of what we call in are all significant to the aims of the national park. So in a way, they're all considered major to myself and the planning officers. So there's no other changes, no legislative changes. Therefore, we recommend approving this for another 12 months.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Are there any questions for Ed? Any debate, any discussion? Okay, are we happy to take forward Ed's recommendation, the officer's recommendation? Yes. Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to item 8. This is for information, consultation on compulsory purchase reform in Scotland, and this is introduced by Gavin Miles, and the recommendation is to note the consultation and potential for the use of CPO powers by the Park Authority and other public bodies, and note the approach proposed by officers to responding to the consultation. Thanks, Gav.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope the paper was reasonably clear and that if you did go and read the consultation document, you thoroughly enjoyed all the detail within it. Please don't ask any complicated questions. I think the paper makes clear that this is a potentially important tool, and there are some local authorities who have used it. The Park Authority has considered using CPO powers in the past, but we haven't ever done it. It's complicated just now. It is a tool we might use in the future, so it's worth the board, the planning committee, knowing about this consultation. But given that we don't have much experience of it ourselves, our comments are pretty high level back on the consultation. Obviously, if there are changes which affect the Park Authority, then we'll let you know what they are in due course. And if there's further consultation on a bill, then we'd also be coming back to you if we were going to comment on that.
Okay, thank you, Gav. Are there any questions for Gav on this paper? Eleanor McIntosh.
Yeah, Gavin, I was led to believe, or maybe it's changed along the way, that the Park Authority didn't actually have the powers of compulsory purchase, and we would have, if we wanted that to happen, we would have to approach the lead council. Did that change along the way at some point?
I don't think it changed. It is there as a power that the Park Authority could use. There are, in many cases, it would make more sense for another public body to use powers because they would be closer, I suppose, to being the right owner. But no, the Park Authority has potentially very wide-ranging CPO powers. Obviously, on any individual case, that would have to be justified very, very clearly, and there are all sorts of considerations about how to use them, under what circumstances, the necessity, and various other processes that would have to be gone through as well, including just offering to buy land or seek agreement over the use of land in some other way. But they are there for the Park Authority to use. There is a financial implication to using them.
Okay, thank you. Mike Williamson.
I'm asking this tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, but I was just wondering what impact or sway does the 1845 legislation have over current right to buy? And if you can't answer it, I can totally appreciate that.
It's still the underpinning legislation. So that's one of the reasons for the suggested streamlining of the system, that we do have to refer back to 1845 legislation.
Okay, member. Are there any more questions, or would like to move to debate? Does anyone like to say anything on this paper? Okay, are we happy to accept the officer's recommendation? Great. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 9, it's an update of planning call-in criteria. The recommendation is to note the amended planning call-in criteria and updated planning advice note on applying for planning permission in the Cairngorms National Park. And this is introduced by Dave Berry. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Convener. So this item just provides a summary, essentially, of amendments to our planning call-in criteria and the public-facing planning advice note that is published on our website and sets out those call-in criteria. As members will recall, we held an informal board discussion session on the 26th of September, during which we discussed and broadly agreed on a small number of areas in the existing call-in criteria that would benefit from being updated. And the amendments to the criteria reflect the outcomes of that discussion and include those updates. So I don't propose to spend a lot of time in terms of presentation, but I think it's probably just worth very quickly running through the main updates to the criteria and they're also summarised in paragraph 5 of the covering report. But the main changes are, firstly, we've lowered the call-in threshold for housing developments in rural settlements as defined in the LDP settlement hierarchy. So this will now be 3 units as we currently use for housing developments outside of settlements. Secondly, we've increased the call-in threshold for employment developments outside settlements to 500 square metres of floor area. And this just really reflects that recognition that we discussed previously, that the existing threshold was really quite low by modern building standards. Thirdly, we've included applications for the change of use of existing residential properties to short-term lets in the list of applications that we're unlikely to call in. And finally, we've made some minor corrections and editorial updates throughout the advice note. That includes updating the previously incorrect footnote reference to Historic Environment Scotland as well, that members picked up during the informal discussion. So the report's presented for information. That's really because Planning Committee doesn't generally approve planning advice notes. They're largely operational matters, but I'm happy to take any questions. And likewise, if members see anything that they're horrified about in the proposals, then I'm also happy to review that advice note before it's published on our website.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Are there any questions for Dave on this paper? Anybody like to comment on it? Any debate, discussion? Okay, are we happy to note the recommendation? Thank you. So we'll move on to item 10, AOCB. And I'll hand back to Dave again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. So I just wanted to briefly update members on progress on a couple of matters, 2 applications essentially. The first one is in relation to the Laurel Bank site at Aviemore. We reported previously that Scottish ministers had notified us that they were minded to grant planning permission for the development of 22 self-catering apartments, shops, hotel and an underground parking at that site in Aviemore, subject to the applicant agreeing an appropriate contribution towards active travel improvements in the local area. And members will recall that Scottish ministers had called in that application to determine themselves due to an outstanding objection from SEPA on flood risk grounds. Just to report that an agreement has now been reached with the applicant, and so we are expecting now that Scottish ministers will release the planning permission for that development shortly. And then secondly, an update in relation to Linstock Park at Nethybridge. Just to report that we recently concluded the legal agreement for the development of 35 houses at land south of Linstock Park. That was the application considered by Planning Committee back in June. So we've now issued that planning permission as well. So that's been issued following conclusion of that legal agreement. So it's just to update members on those two matters.
Okay, thank you, Dave. That then brings to a conclusion the public part of the meeting. For members of the public who may be listening in, the date of our next meeting is on the 23rd of January 2026. So that concludes that part, and can we now turn off the live streaming, please?